Just Minding My Business Radio, where we are moving at the speed of God, learning what we didn't know we didn't know. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
So grab a pen and paper and get ready for information that you can use.
Welcome to the virtual studio of Just Minding My Business Media, LLC. We hope you have had a wonderful day and made the most of this day, having used time wisely. Today, we welcome Candice Bakx-Friesen from our northern neighbor, Canada. Candice is an entrepreneur, real estate agent, sales trainer, certified money coach, and speaker. Her passion is to help people reach their financial dreams by moving them past the fluff to deal directly with the root of each challenge faced by them. Candice trains, mentors on money topics, anything from basic budgeting to real estate investing. Welcome, Candice.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, welcome, welcome, welcome. So, how did you get on this road? Where did this all begin?
Well, I have an entrepreneur background. So my grandparents and my parents were all into business. And when I was about 12, I thought, okay, everyone around me has kind of figured this out, but I don't know how I'm going to figure this out. So I was kind of this nerdy kid who took personal finance books and was reading and trying to figure things out. And I had an aunt who was an accountant. She was the only one from my family really that went to university. And so I really looked up to her and I thought, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to become an accountant and be a career woman, not have kids, and never say never, because now I'm not an accountant. I have 4 kids and that's how life goes.
You're so right about that. Never say never.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So you go ahead, Ruth.
No, I was just going to ask, so with that background, how did you come into dealing with real estate? What made that and the financial planning aspect?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I met my husband and his dad encouraged him to buy a rental property, and he was only 17. And his dad said, like, he was into rentals. So he said to my husband, you know what, before you blow all your money that you earned as a teenager, that you've been saving up, before you go buy a car or silly things that teenagers do, go buy a house. And he's like, what? I can't do that, Dad. Like, I'm just a teenager. He's like, no. And he pushed him to buy a house. And so then not long after, he was making better money and he bought another house. So of course, housing was cheaper 20 years ago. But yeah, that was kind of how he started. So when I met him, then he's, you know, we're chit-chatting as you do when you're dating. And so I was asking him about this because I didn't know anything about rental properties. And I was like, you know what, it makes sense. So once we got married, then he already had those properties. And then we just slowly over time would add another house to it. And we tried to live off one income and purchase with the other money. So we were trying to be super diligent and save a lot and to invest early in life. And so that's kind of how we got into real estate investing. And at the same time, I was a mortgage broker, and somebody had approached me and said, hey, would you want to be a realtor and on this real estate team that I'm starting? So I said, yeah, it sounds good. And the team never ended up working out, but I ended up being successful in real estate. So that's kind of how that came about. And then sort of full circle, in dealing with people with real estate, they would say, you know what, you seem to know about money. Like, can we ask you some other questions? And so it sort of came full circle where people started asking me about personal finance. And I just thought, you know what, you can help a lot of people with real estate, but it's very transactional, right? You're only dealing with them sort of when they're buying or selling homes. And so this was a great way to really help people in a bigger way. And my goal, I guess, really is to just leave a big legacy, right? And to help as many people as possible. And if you can help people manage their finances, you can help, have better, stronger marriages. You can help kids know about personal finance stuff as well, so they have a strong start. And I think when you have strong families, you have strong communities. And so the ripple effect just continues when you help people.
I have to agree with you
I agree with
100%.
that. Totally.
Helping people is the key. We're not here for ourselves, we're here for others. So you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. So finances, that's a huge one. And I think it really should start from the cradle almost. When you start to when you have kids and you start getting into the allowance and that kind of thing, it's a good place for parents to start. Now, in your experience, how do you get people that don't really understand finances? How do you get the juices flowing?
You know what? A lot of the times it starts with your mindset, because if you've been told, our family is renters, we will never own a house, then when you have those mindsets, you have to break some of that stuff before you can move forward. Because you have to believe that you deserve it. You have to believe you can have these things before you're going to strive for that. And so a lot of it is just looking at, what did you learn as a kid? What did you learn as a teenager? Were there things that made you believe certain ways about money? And a lot of that, starts with mindset. And once you can show people little changes they can make, it's like now they have that hope, and then they're like, okay, what else can I do, right? And so then you just keep building on small success.
So what is one of those first steps that someone would take with you?
Well, I think the first thing is to, again, we look at mindset and where people started with their money beliefs from as early as they can think of. So what were things that their parents were saying? What were things that were maybe happening in high school? What were friends saying about money? Where did their belief system come from? And then the next step is to really look at their budget, right? Like, where are they spending and why are they spending? So for example, let's say I'm really stressed out at work and I don't want to go home because I've got all this money stress at home and relationship stress. So I'm going to go to the mall and I'm going to blow $400 on clothes. I get home, I'm like, why did I do that? I feel guilty. And it's just these vicious circles, but we're not dealing often with the underlying problem. So it's not really a money problem, it's a relationship problem, or it's a work environment problem. But we cope with these things in life by spending money, right? We all have our ways. Sometimes it could be overeating, it could be drugs, alcohol, it could be anything, right? Different things that we do to cope with stress. And for some people, it's just spending money, right? Or gambling, or all kinds of different things.
You hit the nail on the head. I'm glad you brought up all those different ways in which we cope. And they're not successful coping mechanisms. So to get past that and to get to and to recognize that it's a mindset. Okay, let's say food. You're just constantly in the grocery store, going through the drive-through, or at the vending machine. You must have that Starbucks coffee in the morning or that you will lose your mind. So those are different ways in which we cope, but they're not adding to our financial stability.
Right.
And we need to look at that. I think that's really key. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. And I think what you said about the Starbucks, it could also be an image thing, right? We got to keep up with the other people at work. And if I'm not bringing in the Starbucks like them, or if my nails aren't done, my hair is not done, I'm not keeping up, I'm feeling bad about myself, instead of looking at my intrinsic value, right? Like, I'm worth more than what other people think.
Okay. Oh my, you're going deep. Thank you for that. We don't have much time, but I really appreciate that. Our intrinsic value and how we really see ourselves in relationship to what we think we're supposed to have or what we think we're supposed to do. That's part of our money mindset. And it's contributed to by the advertisement structure and commercial nature of the world that we live in that tell us that if you don't have this, there's something wrong with you. You need to go out immediately and get it.
Yeah.
So going back to the financial, sitting down with someone and really addressing them. What are some of the questions or situations that people throw up to you as they start breaking through this mindset thing?
I think a lot of it is, you slowly deal with the money stuff, but a lot of it's behind the scenes, right? Where you're thinking, yeah, why do I spend that money? And you just need time to think about that stuff. But we do life on autopilot, right? We wake up, we get ready for work, we go to work, we do our thing, and we don't think about what we're actually doing so often. It's just like driving to work, and then you get there and you're like, how did I actually get here? It's scary, but that's how we live most of our life. We sort of eat the same food all the time, and we just do our thing, right? But when you actually stop, and that's the beauty of having a coach, no matter what area of life that is, but it's having somebody ask you those questions where you're like, I don't know why I do that, and just stopping to think about it.
Wow.
Now,
So-
once you get through that breakthrough with that person, and they have that aha moment, then what happens?
Well, I think then we can really start working on the issue at hand. And so again, maybe it's credit cards. Well, I will always have credit cards, right? It's those beliefs. But when you can see, no, you know what? I don't need to go spend all that money all the time. I don't need to go through the Starbucks all the time. And then to say, okay, now with that money that you're not spending, what can we do with that? Then people see that there's that hope. And it's so much easier to go after what you really want in life, which is, again, something people don't usually even think about, right? Like, what do you want? People are like, I don't know what I want. But we can set some goals and have a plan of what we're working towards. Then it's like, oh, well, if I'm not spending on that, suddenly I have all this money freed up and I can tackle that debt. And I don't have to have that credit card debt. And it's like weight off your shoulders, right? Not having the stress of that kind of stuff. And now suddenly relationships are better. I'm not overeating or stress eating. And all these things are interconnected. So you can have so much come from managing one of the issues in life because all of them are interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really an important fact. We try to, the world that we live in tries to segment things, but they're not segmented. They are interconnected. Your money is interconnected with your family. It's your childhood. It's everything. And if we don't slow down to look at it, we just stay in that continuous curve. Well, this ball of confusion about everything. So in order to get somebody to slow down, do you have a written format that kind of like takes them through the breakdown of like, okay, we're going to step down now. This is what you've been doing. Let's get you out of that. Do you have like a written form that they go through?
Yeah, we do the mindset work first, and then we go into the budgeting, and then we go into investing and saving. And then we're also looking at insurance, making sure they have enough and they're not overinsured also. All the way sort of through all the steps of life, right? We've got wills and legacy, and again, what's the plan, because this is a good example. This woman said to me, you know what, years ago, my husband and I, we got married when we were 20, and we just sort of thought through what would we want our life to look like together. And so at one point we said, or part of that plan was, okay, if we retire at 60, we're going to go travel, we're going to sell everything, we're going to buy a camper and or motorhome, and we're going to go tour around the United States and do that for 2 years. And she said, you know what, Candice, we did it. We retired at 60, we got that camper, we sold our house, and they were about, I think they were around 70 right now. And I was like, that's so cool. But she's like, we wouldn't have done most of the things in life if we hadn't thought that through and really decided what do we want to do, because now we had something to shoot for. And so that's what it is. You know, it's going through all the different parts of finances to figure out, okay, do we got everything covered here? And then what's the dream? What do you want to achieve? You know, and for some people, it might be also looking at increasing income. Maybe you want to ask for a raise and you haven't been brave enough to. Maybe you want to start a side job. You've always, or a side entrepreneurial hustle. You know, you want to start a side business and you've always dreamed of doing that. But sometimes we just need somebody to say, go for it. And then we have the confidence, yeah, you know what, I can go for that. So
if people want to get in contact with you, how do they do so?
so my company brand is called investorsmarts.ca, which is for Canada, not California, but for Canada. Investorsmarts.ca. And yeah, so there's all kinds of information on there. It's easy to find me online. So
Yes, I always love talking about money because I think, people don't really understand what it is
yeah.
sometimes, and they don't have the discipline.
Yeah.
So in your program, how do you work with defining money?
You know, it's really a tool, right? And so again, some of that mindset stuff is breaking down those emotions that come with money. Because again, some people just avoid it and they're like, I'm not talking about it. We're staying in this house forever. This is just what our lot in life is. And they just ignore it because they hate talking about money. And the problem is that we have different money personalities, and as a couple, especially, they come together, and usually we're opposites. So we got a spender and a saver, and so naturally there's going to be that conflict, right? So conflict arises, both people say forget it, and they just don't want to talk about it. But if we can have those conversations, again, we can get past difficulties. So we keep going towards that plan that we have. So it's just something that people they don't want to talk about it, right? They don't want to drum up the conflict. You know, we both have jobs, we're both paying the bills, good enough. That tends to be sort of the attitude around money.
I think that's just, I don't want to overrun our time or anything, but that is just, as I heard you say that, my thought is that that conflict that comes up in marriage is much more deep-seated than people realize. They say, oh, I love you, everything will work out. That's not the truth. Right. This is one of the key conversations that you have to have when you are thinking about marriage.
Yeah.
You've got to find out, first of all, what your money issues are. You've got to come face to face with that. And then you need to find out what your partner's money issues are or aren't. Yeah. Because if not, that's going to be a major conflict.
Mm-hmm. And a lot, you know, I think back in the day, a lot of people, two things. There was more marital counseling. If people got married in a church, you know, the pastor, priest, or whoever would do counseling as sort of part of that. So you had to do it. But now people don't do premarital counseling. And I think that that's really important. And I actually offer a premarital coaching program, a 5-week program, because I feel it is so important. And then the other thing is people used to share money. They just have one joint account, whereas a lot of couples now have separate. And it's not that one is right or the other or wrong, but I feel like if you're doing your money separate, again, you can kind of avoid some of these conversations because I pay these bills, you pay those, and it just sort of works. And we leave it at that because this is mine, that's yours. So I think that some of these changes maybe have just again we haven't had the conversations that we should have been having.
I have to agree.
Yeah.
You know, and no real goals set, you know, because I mean life is all about goals. Every day you set a goal for something, whether it's, you know, whatever that looks like, finishing up something by the end of the day, getting something started by the end of the week, whatever. And when you live your life in such a way, planning becomes a part of who you are. And I think, you know, with couples in particular, you know, sometimes the other person is spontaneous, and there's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah.
because I like spontaneous too. But at the same time, trying to, you know, sitting, like you said, that conversation is really critical
Hmm.
when you're planning a life together. And I have to agree with you that abstinence of, you know, that mentoring prior to getting married, that counseling, many people don't do that anymore.
No.
And it used to be a requirement
Mm.
to have that. And now it's like people just go get married and they don't, and then they come, like I like to say what Ruth says, and they come with all this luggage and then just dump it out. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, it comes
Or
as a shock.
yeah. Or let's now have babies because that'll help. No.
No.
Right, right.
You
No.
know, think about all the young ones who go into marriage, people who go into marriage and they have these phenomenal weddings.
Yeah.
And sometimes the parents can't support them. So they're going into their marriage carrying their college debt as well as their wedding debt.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And then like you said, "Oh, well, let's have a baby. That'll take care of everything."
Yeah.
It's like we've lost track of what it means to be human, and
Mhm.
we've lost track of how to really successfully live. You
Mhm.
know, I think we live sometimes in fantasy, the
Yeah.
fantasy that's been created by the world around us. And
Yeah.
so we play into that fantasy and not into the reality of life. Okay, like the woman that you talked about, they made a plan. They knew
Mhm.
what they wanted to do. They worked together to achieve it.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's not the way. Everybody's sort of like they get into marriage and everybody's going their own way,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
So we live in a world that is not based in reality when it comes to money. And a lot of people have no confidence with money, and a lot of people have fears
Yeah.
around money, which may have come out of their childhood. So
Yeah.
you're dealing with people who are not, when it comes to money, there's no basis in reality,
Mhm.
almost like a fantasy, you know. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to learn about it. And certainly if as adults we're not learning about it, we can't teach that to our children.
Yeah.
So they're growing up in the same fantasy. Oh, it'll all just work out.
Right.
For
And it
sure.
used to, and it used to work out, that you could have just one person working and you stayed in the same house again for most of your working years. You had a nice pension at the end and it worked out, but that's just not reality either anymore.
No,
So,
no,
yeah.
People
exactly.
don't stay in a job long enough. They're usually there 5, maybe 10 years, if that, before they're moving on to increase their career. So there is no pension to be built up. And you don't have the factory jobs that we used to have, where people did have amazing uh, pensions at the end of all things, you know, when they retired. But all of that's gone. So we have to think differently. We have to get a new way of thinking. And that goes along with that mindset,
Hmm.
um, really understanding that it's a tool.
Yeah.
That's all it is. I
Yes.
have a friend who said money is just a blip on the screen, just a blip on the screen, you
Yeah.
know, because that money is not like dollars and cents sitting there.
Yeah.
And we have to start thinking along that lines too. My money is not static. Even when I put it in the bank, it is not static. It's constantly moving.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's, I think, sort of like what we have to learn how to do, make our money move.
Yeah.
Hmm.
We're not
Absolutely.
moving forward, we're moving backward,
Mhm.
which can be hard for people again because people just want to set and forget it. But you can't, the more attention you pay to your money, the more it's going to work for you. And you're going to always be looking for opportunities and be reading the paper and doing your research and the other part of it is that we don't talk about it. You don't invite friends over and say, hey, what did you invest in last week? That's like, no, that's a taboo. They're not coming over for dinner anymore after that.
Oh,
But really, it's such an important topic. We should be, right? Like, what are
yes, I
great
agree.
investments? Yeah, but so
Unless you are in that circle, I
yeah,
mean, I do have people that, I do some Bitcoin investing, and I'm learning. And, I found that you can't read about it. You just got to kind of jump in and do it to really understand it. So, do you encourage different types of investments that are, for example, the Bitcoins, the crypto
Yeah,
space?
I don't know enough about that, and I feel like it's such a new thing that if people want to do it, go for it. But I feel like it's kind of a hard one for me to say, yeah, go do it. And what if it doesn't turn out?
Right.
So new. So I kind of leave that one alone. But I feel like again, it's so dependent on the people. Like some people say, okay, if I have $1 million, what do I do? And I'm like, well, it depends on your goals. It depends on your risk value, like factor that how much risk can you handle. It depends how you want to live in retirement. Like there's so many factors, right? That it's really hard to give just generic advice to anybody.
Oh,
So it really depends. Yeah, it depends on the person.
well, again, how do people get in contact with you? Because we could go on and on and on.
Yes, we could.
Definitely, we definitely have to have you come back so that we can dig deeper into different areas. But how
Yeah.
can people get in touch with you?
So the best way is to reach out through my website, which is investorsmarts.ca.
All righty. Well, it's been an honor and a pleasure. And like I said, we are definitely going to have you back because I love talking about money. I love educating people around it
Yeah.
and helping people to really understand what money can do and cannot do.
Yeah.
And that is a huge topic all the time.
Mhm.
So we are so grateful that you definitely reached out to us, and we look forward to more collaborations with you.
Awesome. Thank you so
Indeed.
much, lady.
Thank you, Candice.
Your business through Just Minding My Business Media has exposure on internet radio, major social media platforms, and now TV through Just Minding My Business dynamic digital marketing platform. Don't listen to the word on the street. Hear it for yourself. Visit jmmb.assistacircle.org to learn how you can take your business, your vision, to the next level. Voiceovers by RCH VoiceWorks for when you want to be heard. Call 443-620-4115.
Thank you for tuning in to Just Minding My Business Radio. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
We hope you enjoyed the show and appreciate you stopping by. Many blessings to you and yours.